Hi everyone and welcome to Triple M Adventures with Bill. Before we get started, please consider subscribing to my channel and possibly becoming a patron, which will help me produce more content for you on my channel in the future. What is this video about? This video is about Betaflight. Now, I had a comment in one of my videos which was to do with setting up your Radio Master radio for a quadcopter, and someone said, could I go through the process of doing it in Betaflight? Now, I'm not a professional at Betaflight, but I can set a quad up. I'm way off of being able to do like PID tuning or anything, so I will keep all those figures as standard. But I can show you how to set up the quad in Betaflight. Let's switch over to my computer. Before we get started, I just want to give you a background of what we're going to do. I've got a brand new flight controller for my Tina Whoop because the old one broke. So we are going to set that up as brand new. So you'll see when we go over to Betaflight, there are no modes set up or whatever. So we're going to go through the whole process. And I have installed a TBS tracer receiver onto my flight controller. So let's go over to my computer. First thing, we're going to go to Betaflight. Now let me plug my flight controller in. There we go, and we're going to connect. And there we go. First thing we need to do is just check that our flight controller, I've done this already. We're going to check what's wrong port. We need to go into setup. We're going to check that our flight controller's accelerometer is working. You can see it is working correctly. That's great. I'd like to suggest here that you plug your flight controller into Betaflight before you do any soldering, just in case there's a problem with the flight controller and it doesn't work. You'll see me running, I've just run the test here on the video, but I did actually plug it in before I did any soldering whatsoever. Now let me turn my radio on.
Welcome to OpenTX.
And there we go, the radio is connected and the receiver is connected to the radio. So let's switch over to my computer. First thing, in setup, we don't need to do anything there. We just checked that the accelerometer was working. You can see as I shake my desk, the quad is moving. In the ports, this flight controller only has 2 UARTs. So they are being used for smart audio, and there's the one that's going to be used for the receiver, the serial RX. So that's already set up. Then we go into configuration, and we need to do some changes in here. So the first thing I can see there is the arming. Now on the arming, we don't want to keep it at 60 degrees because we need to change that to 180. So if we get caught in a tree, it will arm so we can try and wiggle our way out of the situation. So we're going to change that over to 180. That's done. Right, let's have a look. Personalization, we can change the name and I will put TMA. There we go, it's already there, Tina Whoop. I think that should fit. Oops. Tina Whoop. Okay. Okay, camera angle we're going to ignore. Right, here's the important bit. In the receiver, we now need to make changes to the receiver so our tracer will operate on our quadcopter. So let's go back to the computer. Okay, so we need to keep this at serial based receiver. Here, in the serial receiver provider, we're going to choose Crossfire. Okay, that should be everything. We're not putting GPS on this one. And as far as air mode's activated, that's good. Okay, so we should be good there. We'll leave all the D-Shot beacon set up as is. And we'll leave all the beeper configurations as normal. So now we will just need to go save, reboot. Okay, so we've saved the settings, we can connect again. Now let's move on to the power and battery section. Okay, we are not going to do anything in here at the moment. We can later on check our battery to make sure that the voltage is correct, but this is not part of this video. So let's move on to failsafe. Now in here, we need to make sure that the failsafe is set to drop, which it is. I think that is the default. So we don't need to do anything else in here. If we had a GPS, then we could set up our return to home from here. Okay, PID tuning we are going to ignore, and now we get onto receiver. Now, let's have a look, see what's happening here. If I move my control, okay, that's my elevate, that's my, my pitch, that's my yaw, so they're completely messed up. That's my throttle, and that this movement is my roll. So that is completely not working correctly. So that is not working correctly. Now the reason is because of the mapping of the radio. Now I've changed my radios over to be AETR. This, at the time I did this model, set this model up in the first place, it was RETA. So we need to adjust this. So let's go back to the computer. And I know I need to change this in the channel mapping to TAER. And then we should be good. If I click save, there we go, it stopped rotating. So if I now move my roll, there we go. And on the window, A means aileron. So this is going back to the aeroplane days. But roll, throttle, and then we've got the pitch and we've got yaw. So everything is good there. All of our controls are working correctly. Now at this point we need to set up our endpoints for our main flight control. So let's go back to the computer and I will show you how to do this. Now let me just show you what you're going to need to write down. So I've done this, just a simple spreadsheet, so you can see we're going to have to take the low and high readings of our sticks, and then we're going to write them into here, the values in, which I'm going to do on a piece of paper, but I just wanted to show you this is what we'll be looking at. So we go to Betaflight. So we are going to now, going to put the roll, okay, we're going to write that number down. So that's 988. That was full left, now full right, left, and now I'm going to go full right. That's 2011. Then we're going to go on to elevator, 988. That's full down, full pitch up, 2005. Then we're going to go to rudder, or our yaw, 2011. And completely left, 988. See, there's a pattern there. And then our throttle, full forward, 2011, and full back, 988. Okay, I've written those figures down. Now we need to go to our CLI. And we've got to type some commands in now. So we're going to put RX range space. The first one is always 0. The first one is always 0 because in Betaflight, programming starts from 0, not from 1. And we're going to put space. Now I'm going to go back to my notes. It was 988, oops a daisy, sorry, 988, and then you put a space, and then you do 2011. That was my first line. And you push enter. Okay. Then we're going to do RX range again. And we're going to go to our second one, which is number 1. We use space. And we're going to type in there, again, 988 space, and the second reading, which was 2005. And enter. Then we go on to the next line. So RX range space, this is number 2. We put a space, and those readings were 988 and a space and 2011, and then push enter. And the final one is RX range, and this one is number 3, and it's space 988 space 2011. Okay, whoops a daisy, make sure we get it correct. Push enter. Now we can just quickly check through those. They look fine. And then we are going to click, we're going to type in save. So it's going to reboot. Now we reconnect. And we go back to our receiver. If we put the figures in correctly, we should have the correct figures coming up in Betaflight. Okay, so we've got our throttle 1000, throttle high 2000, roll right 2000, roll left 1000. That's great. And our pitch back 1000, pitch forward 2000, and then we go to yaw, and we yaw left, and it's 1000, and then 2000. And there we go, we've done our endpoint adjustments. Now we can move on to our modes. Let's go back to the computer. Now let's switch over to the modes tab, and you can see our arm switch is set up on aux1. Now the aux channels, they go from aux1 onwards, and they relate to channel 5. So aux1 is channel 5, aux2 is channel 6, and so on. This is set up on the correct aux channel. Now we need to add in our modes. So we are going to unhide. Now there we go, we've got angle, horizon. Now the default is acro. So we are going to say add range. So we click the add range, and it's in auto. I'm just going to move my switch, and you must move the switch that you want to choose. So I'm going to there, and that is correct. Okay, so angle would be in the middle position. Then we go to horizon, and we say click range, and we click, and it's picked the same aux channel. Now I need to move those around so that when, there we go, when we're in the switch in forward, I'm in acro mode. When it's in the middle, which is correct, I'm in angle mode. And when the switch is fully back, I'm in horizon mode. So I need to move these cursors over so that it covers that area. So we should be good to go there. Now I've got air mode permanently activated. Now air mode means that when you've armed the quad, your PIDs are still in operation. So in other words, if you were flying up high and you shut the throttle back, you'd still have authority with your yaw, pitch and roll, because the PIDs are still operating. Obviously the quadcopter would drop, but you still have control over it. This allows us to be able to do aerobatics with our quadcopter. So I've left that permanently on. Now one thing you have to remember is that when you've got air mode activated, you must, when you take off, you must go for it and take off as soon as you've armed. Because if you don't, the PIDs can get confused because they're fighting the ground. They're trying to correct the quad, maybe it's slightly tilted, and it can't because it's trying to turn it into the ground, and it can go a bit bananas. So if you have air mode activated, which I suggest you do, you need to arm, poof, and then take off into the air. I hope I've explained air mode adequately to you. Now let's check again. I'm going to turn my volume up. So I've got armed and disarmed. Then I've got angle mode. Correct. Come back down, and then acro mode. There we go. They are set up. On aux3, I've set up my flip mode or my turtle mode. Now let's go down to flip over after crash. There we go. So I click range. Now I need to do the switch that I set up for this, which I think is, there we go, it's that one. So turtle mode on. So you can see that is off, but that's where it's on. So I need to move the slider over so that it's covered in that range. Okay, so there we go. There we go, turtle mode off, turtle mode on. I also set the beeper up on my Tina Whoop so that if I lose it in the grass, I can turn the beeper on. And that one I set up on aux4. Let's go and find, there's the beeper. So we're going to click range, and then, there we go. You can see that is working because that's off. That's the buzzer on. So let's just check our aux channels again. Okay, so we've got armed. Okay, that is working.
Disarm motors.
Right, then we go to our modes.
Angle mode.
Okay, so acro mode, that's correct. Angle mode is active. Horizon mode is active. Then our beeper. There we go, is fine. Okay. Yep, and flip over after crash. So it's off, it's on, and it's off. And there we go. We just need to click save now. And we should be good to go. You can see now which mode we're in. If I angle mode, acro,
Angle mode, horizon mode.
there we go. Okay. Now we can move over to the video transmitter section. Let's go to the video transmitter section, and you can see there's no VTX table. Now what I did, I went to the Diatone website and they've got the VTX table there. So you would have to do that for whichever VTX that you have. So I've downloaded it and it's a JSON file. Now let's go back to the computer. Now what we can do is load from a file. So we click down here and there it is, Diatone Tina Whoop, that's the one. And we're going to say OK. There it is. It's put the table in for us. Okay, the values of the VTX have been loaded but not yet stored on your flight controller. So we need to click save. Okay, we should be good now. Let's just disconnect. Okie dokie, let's connect again just to make sure the VTX tables are there. So there we go. It's as easy as that. So all you need to do with your VTX table is go to the manufacturer's website for the VTX that you purchased and you should be able to find it there. Now the only thing we haven't done yet is tested the motors. So we're going to go over to the motors tab and that is the final stage that we need to do before we can test fly our quadcopter. I normally test my motor direction using a piece of paper like this. Now you must take your props off before you do this because it could be dangerous if you go and make a mistake and rev all the engines up. So you just need a little piece of paper like this to test it. Let's switch over to the computer and you can see here it says I understand the risk and the propellers have been removed. So you click that option and then all you're going to do is slowly advance the motors. Now my quad battery is not connected because you will have to have the quad battery connected so the motors can run. So you'll test each one, accelerate, just use your piece of paper, check which way the motor's going, and if you're lucky, they'll all be going the right way. In my case, two of them were going the wrong way. So I will show you. Let's go to BL Heli to change it. Let me show you how to change it. I've opened BL Heli. Now what we need to do is okay, I'm going to turn my radio on.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Okay, so we don't get lots of beeping.
Disarm motors, timer 1 up.
Okay, now I've plugged in my quadcopter and I'm going to apply the power. Make sure it's not armed. Okay. Now we see we've come up with COM4. So if we click connect, and you see up here it says make sure you've taken the propellers off before doing anything on this tab. Connect power to the ESC. So it's warned you. Then we need to just go to the bottom and say read the setup. Okay, I've noticed this before. You see it's only brought up 3 of my ESCs, which is a bit strange. So let's click read setup again. There we go, they've all come up. Now all you need to do is go to the motor you need to change. Now I needed to change ESC3 and 4 and reverse those. You normally find it is 2 that you have to reverse. So that's all you do is you change that and then you say right setup. Let me right setup there again. Okay, and then you can disconnect. Now, if you want to, just to make sure you can connect again, read the setup. Okay, which it's done it again. Let's do it again. Okay, and we'll check they're both reversed. So the motors are going the direction you want to. So we can disconnect. And that's it. We can move on to the next stage. Now let's take a look at our OSD. Let's switch back to my computer. I'm going to change the OSD. Now here we can select what we have come up on our screen. Now you can see the Tina Whoop is not level, so let's just pull that into the middle. So you just drag across. That should level it up, yep. And then you can pick any options you want. I'm going to turn off anti-gravity, battery average cell, no, don't want that. Current draw, we can keep that. So this, you can personalize exactly what you want on the screen. So this is a very personal thing, but I just wanted to show you how to do it. So what else have we got? Let's have a look. RSSI value, let's put that on. And the warnings, yeah, they're the ones that will flash up here, and they're all related to the warnings here that you can turn on. So we won't go into depth on that, but at least I would get the warnings here. Now you can see the RSSI is in a funny place. Normally I put that up top right so that I can look at my screen and see it. It's like a prominent one that I want to have a look at. And I normally put my channel up the top as well. Let's slide this across. So this is very personal, all too far. There you go. You can see it's a bit of a fiddly process to move around. Let's pop that one there. And then put this over there. So it's a little bit fiddly. You have to play around with it to get what you want. But the basics I want is the warnings and the RSSI, and then you've got your flight time. So I'm going to leave the OSD exactly as I've seen this. But you can see it's easy to do. You just select the one you want and then drag it to whichever position you want onto your screen. Now we need to just push save to save those options, and it tells us we're saved. There is one thing we need to do, and that is to calibrate our accelerometer. So let's switch over to the computer and I'll show you how to do this. We need to go to Setup, and you have to make sure your quadcopter, I'm just turning mine over, I want to get it flat on the desk, which is a bit difficult with this one because it has the connectors in a funny place for the computer. So you can see it's saying it's not level. I hope my desk is level. And then you just hit the accelerometer button, keep the quad absolutely still, and then the job is done. Now at this stage I tested the quadcopter and I had problems with it. It was flipping out. Now there were a couple of adjustments I needed to make, and so it's very difficult to make a tutorial video about Betaflight and setting up a quad because there are so many different parameters, and this quadcopter is a pusher configuration. So let's switch over to the computer and I'm going to show you what I did, and then I had a successful flight. Okay, if we go to the configuration tab, which we're already in, the way I'd set my props up, I had to reverse the motor direction here, and then also the board alignment wasn't quite right, which was strange because this board came from a Diatone, and it is a board that needs to be, it's not squarely in your quad, it's at an angle. So it's strange that this was wrong. So I had to go to here, and this was a minus 90 degrees. I had to change that to 0. And then everything was working fine. But if we went back in the setup, the eagle-eyed view, if you were watching carefully at the beginning of the video, you would have seen in this screen that my quadcopter wasn't reacting correctly. Now that was because of the minus 90 degrees that was in the configuration section under the board and sensor alignment. So the quadcopter, you must make sure that in the setup screen that your quadcopter is doing exactly, when you move it, it's doing exactly what it should be. I quickly skipped through that, but then realized that I had a problem there, and that was because of the board alignment. Now there are many ways to adjust the board alignment, because you might need to put the board in a certain way in your quadcopter, because that's the way you've got to do it so that you can get to the USB connector or whatever, and that's how you adjust it. So as I've said, this video is to show you how I did it with the Tina Whoop, but there can be adjustments you need to make for your individual quadcopter. I'm going to be doing a build of an Ishin quadcopter soon, starting off from scratch. So I will then probably, when I do the review of that quadcopter, I will go through the things I needed to do to set it up. So there is a learning curve, the same there is with OpenTX. There is a learning curve with this, but in the end it's worth it. And with Betaflight there is a learning curve. If you just slowly work your way through it, you will get there. And you just need to be careful that you make sure, I was very cautious when I did my test, my first test. Luckily the quad just went zoop and turned over and the flight controller turned everything off, so there wasn't a problem at all. And there we go. If you follow this video, you should have set your quadcopter up in Betaflight. There are lots of different things that can be set up in Betaflight, so with your quadcopter it may be slightly different. You may be able to have GPS, but this is the basics. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below because I'd love to hear from you. And thanks for watching. Happy flying. Bye for now.